It is peak travel season, and AAA says more Americans will be flying this summer compared to the same period last year. But not everyone likes the idea of a commute 30,000 feet above ground.
So how do you conquer your fear of flying? Dr. Sanam Hafeez, a New York City-based neuropsychologist, is here to offer some tips. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So this affects a lot of people.
It affects about 25% of Americans, which is a really big number if you think about it.
Yeah.
Now, do we know the cause, or is it different for everybody?
It's different for everybody, but people who have phobias have a tendency toward phobia. So it's usually people who are prone to anxiety, maybe depression, but it could be someone who maybe watched, a movie or heard about a crash when they were very young, and it sort of became embedded in their memory circuit, so to speak.
So if you are one of these people, how do you get over your fear? What are some of the things that you can do?
So I will have to say that it's supposed to be a gradual therapeutic, sort of a plan. So if you have to take a flight in a week, it's probably not enough, but there are things that you can still do. So I'll talk a little bit about that. So with any kind of phobia, exposure therapy is key, which means the more you expose someone to something that they're terrified of, the easier it gets, because the thought of what might happen is worse than the actual, occurrence or event. So one of the first things that I can talk about is really understanding this mysterious machine that flies, right? Like, for most of our lives, air travel has been common, but it's still a mystery. It's not like a car. You don't feel like you have any control. How does it even fly? What do all these, noises mean, and what does turbulence mean? So understanding that, reading a book about it, watching a video, a technical video, attending a flight clinic might be one way of just familiarizing yourself with this mystery. Another thing is cognitive behavioral therapy. So cognitive behavioral therapy aims to change the way you think and the way you behave by very slowly replacing irrational thoughts and behaviors, because phobia feeds on irrational thought, right? There's very little rational thought in fear of flying, aviophobia. There's a chance of maybe 1 in 5 million or so of something happening if you flew every day for 14 years.
1 in 5 million
yes,
chance.
if you flew every day for 14 years. But talk to someone who has this phobia, it does not matter to them.
And I think a lot of it is because so many things we see on television, the plane crashes, these types of things, and that's one of the things you don't want them watching.
Absolutely. If you have it, you avoid the media, because the media is not going to talk about the millions of flights that take off and land safely. They're going to talk about that one flight that maybe didn't even crash. Maybe it's a little bit of, something going on when it landed, and that's all that person is going to hold on to. And it's going to just feed on that fear.
So if you are one of the people that has to take a flight in a week, or maybe you have a relative who moved out of state and you'd love to not take a train to see them, what are some of the easier things that you can do right now to try to get over your fear? You hear of people being like, I'm just going to have a few drinks when I get on the plane. Probably not a good idea.
Probably not. If you absolutely have to, you can go get a benzodiazepine, which is a medication that'll just calm the anxiety. But just having that prescription, I think, does all the magic, because there's a rescue if you need it. But the ideal way to do it is to slowly familiarize yourself with, let's say, packing a suitcase and doing some deep breathing and see how you feel. Master that. Maybe drive to the airport just one day and come back, and then maybe walk through a terminal. Just the things leading up to the flight can be just as frightful as the flight itself.
And I think I was looking at one of your tips and saw to tell the flight attendant that you have that fear, which I think is a great idea.
Yeah, if you get on and you tell maybe the head flight attendant, and say, look, I'm really terrified, this is very hard for me, and there's a good chance that person will check in with you and sort of maybe hold your hand when there's some turbulence, and sort of just maybe bring you something to eat, or engage you in conversation, and that distractibility can be a wonderful thing. And even having in-flight activities like a book, a podcast that you might want to listen to, all very helpful.
And important to keep in mind that your odds of getting into a plane crash, 1 in 500 million?
5 million.
Okay.
5 million if you flew every day for 14 days.
Yeah.
And if you can just remind yourself of that mantra, that might be a little helpful.
And then
as
also
well.
that driving is more dangerous.
Yes, absolutely.
So
yeah.
A lot of things to think about.
Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor, for
nice
coming in. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And for more information on these tips, you can head to our website, cbsnewyork.com.